Hey everybody, how's it going today? Man, it is hot and humid here. Whew. Anyway, I've got this 07 Buick LaCrosse that I'm working on. It's got a 3.8, the Series 3 motor, and it's here for a coolant leak, and I just did a steering rack on it. I don't know if any of you are familiar where the power steering pump is located on these in order to fill them. Ridiculous what GM did. But anyway, let me just show you something. So here's the motor itself, 3.8. I know most of you know what this is. It's a very good, very reliable motor. It's got a couple of issues. But anyway, the coolant leak, it's got these plastic tubes from the factory. You could see one of them right there. Right there, you can just see the edge of it. And that goes up and under and into the intake manifold, which you can see right there. Let's see if I can focus in on that a little bit. Now, they get brittle and they start to leak. They're held in with O-rings on each end. There's another one down below, which I can just see with a mirror. I don't think I can film it at all. But basically, to get to them, I got to take the alternator out, and I got to take the coolant hoses off the back, and the tensioner has to come out, and this whole bracket assembly has to come out in order to get those things off of there. Because for some reason or other, GM decided to put the heater hoses going through the alternator bracket. So the alternator bracket itself is part of the heater hoses. So now, if you look down below here, you could just see the top. See that? That reddish thing? Notice the power steering symbol on it? Right there? Yeah, that's the power steering fill, because that's the power steering pump down there. Yeah, great idea, GM. Let's put it down in the most inconvenient spot possible. I'm sure, actually, if they tried, they could have probably come up with something even more inconvenient. So now, what do I got to do? I'm going to disconnect the battery. I'm going to charge it too. So I'm going to take this bar out so I can disconnect it, because somebody converted it to top terminal. It's not supposed to have that, but I love top terminal compared to side terminal, let me tell you that. I'm going to take the fuse block out of the way, and I'm going to take the overflow tank out of the way. Then I'm going to start disconnecting everything up top. Got to take this engine cover off, no big deal. You just take the spout out like this, and then this whole thing comes off. This way you get to the top of the motor. The alternator is going to come out, like I said. That support bracket right here, that's going to come out. So let me get started on that. Let me start getting this apart. And like I said, I'm going to take this bracket out first. Then I'm going to disconnect the battery, take the fuse block out, and we're going to go from there. So I'm going to show you at different points what I've been doing and how I got to that point. All right, so let's get going. So that brace is out of the way, battery's disconnected, and I took the lead off from the terminal here that goes over to the fuse block. So now the fuse block is completely separated. How do you get the fuse block apart? See these bolts right here? What you got to do is you got to undo those, because the connectors that come up underneath actually get screwed in and locked in through these bolts. So basically, there's 7mm head. Got my little gun, and now you see how that pushed up. I'll show you on the next one. Now you push it down, and you can hear it spinning. Now watch real close. You'll see it comes up. See how it came up? Now, what you're going to do is push it down, like that, and you see how it dropped, and now it releases. Again. See how it came up? Push it down, like that, and now it releases. Alright, so now, what you got to do is release the tabs. There's one there. There's one on the bottom probably. There's some on the side here. So let me release those tabs, and then this whole top piece should come right out. And then you can actually take the harness out from this. So let me do that. All right, I got all of those released. Now this should pull straight up. Now look at that. It's actually hitting the terminal there, because somebody put a top terminal in. But now see that? The whole thing actually comes straight out. See that? So now you can actually pull the wiring out and tuck it to the side. This way you can get this whole assembly out of the way. This just gives you room to work over there, because I'm a big guy, so it helps me. Some of you might not have to do this. Me, I rather have all the room in the world, so that's why I do stuff like this. It helps me out. Older guy, and I'm a big guy, so I'd rather do this, and it makes life easier for me. Like I said, you may not have to do this. So now, like I said, just going to pull that harness out like that, harnesses, and disconnect this stuff and just get the bottle and that all out of the way. Now with that stuff out of the way, if you look, you can actually see that other elbow right there. That's the one that's leaking. Like I said, they get brittle and they start to fall apart and the O-rings leak, and you can see it's wet right around the elbow where it goes into the cylinder head or whatever in the world. I think that's another bracket. I don't recall off the top of my head. But yeah, so the whole thing itself, actually no, I'm sorry, that's the water pump housing right there, or the front cover housing I should say. So, but anyway, yeah, so now, also, when you take the hoses off there, I take them off the actual piece. There's an O-ring on the other side of this. I usually don't disturb any of that. I usually just take the hose off, take the clamps off, take the hoses off, and this way I leave these connectors in there. These are metal connectors, these two, and I just found that if you disturb them a lot of times, sometimes you get pitting on the inside here because these things face down, so water has a tendency to collect on one side of the O-ring. I just don't like to disturb them, so that's why I do it that way. So now, let me get the bracket out, let me get the alternator out of the way. Here's the tensioner for the belt, just got to loosen that up, get the belt itself off, and then everything should come right out real easy. So there, I just have the alternator tucked off to the side. No, it's not resting on injectors or anything. There's actually a bracket coming off of the injector rail. It's not that heavy, it's just laying there. I don't want to hear somebody saying, oh, you're going to break an injector. No, it's not going to happen. Anyway, I don't actually have to take the heater hoses off. I just realized it's not like I need to take this thing out because I'm doing other work. A lot of times I'll take it out because I'm doing other work. Like I might be doing valve cover gaskets, head gaskets, whatever, intake gasket, where I don't want to deal with it being in the way. So, but on this, I don't actually have to do that because I do not have to do other things. I'm just replacing those two elbows. So now what I'm going to do is, there's one hidden bolt under here. I got to get that out, one here, and then there's one here. Those three, and this whole thing will slide out. Now, if you look close, there you can see the great spot that GM put the power steering pump in. Why they couldn't put a reservoir remotely somewhere, like up on a strut tower here, something, anything to make life easy, but nope, they got to put it down there. So anyway, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this apart right now, and I'm going to change those elbows, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill the power steering while I'm here, because it just makes my life that much easier. So let me get those three bolts out and pry that thing out of the way, and I'll show you what that looks like. Now with those three bolts out of the way, you can just pry on here, just a little pressure, you don't have to put much on, and who cares if you break them, you're replacing them anyway. And the new ones are actually made of metal. I try not to break them because it just makes your life that much more difficult if they do break. But there you can see it just started pouring out. So let's let that come out. And just wanted to show you real quick in case you're wondering. These are made by Dorman. And there's a part number 47065 HP. There's two different ones. One's for the upper, one's for the lower. So we're just going to get this thing to leak out like this. I got a pan underneath it. Hopefully it's catching everything and not making a humongous mess. So let's get this completely apart, and then we'll fill up the power steering. And there you see the bracket off the car. I mean, that's just, I don't understand the reasoning behind why GM did this. I always thought this was stupid. I mean, your tensioner bracket that bolts to the motor, I mean, it's the whole tensioner if I'm not mistaken, right? Yeah, that's the whole tensioner. You have coolant passages going through it. I just never understood it. But anyway, you could see here, somebody had siliconed this at one point in time. So I'm gonna have to probably break that apart, and that's got silicone on it too. So, but part of the tube is in there. Like I said, they become brittle. So the O-ring portion of this tube is still stuck inside there. This one is still together, but obviously we're gonna replace both at this point in time. So on that one, I'm probably gonna have to break it. Be careful when you're doing something like that so you don't gouge the aluminum. Use something soft, or just be careful, basically. That stuff will become brittle and just break apart coming out. All right, so let me do that. And like I said, I'm gonna top off the power steering fluid right now. This way I don't have to worry about it later. All right. The other end of that elbow broke too. There are some of the pieces that I dug out. I got the broken pieces out of there. I'm gonna have to tip that over and just clean it out. I'm gonna probably run a Scotch-Brite, roll it up and run a Scotch-Brite in there just to try to clean it up. Because, you know, of course somebody had to put silicone in there. And if you look down there, I broke this apart, and I'm getting the pieces out just like that. So that's the plastic. The O-ring is already up on the radiator support. You saw that. But yeah, you can just see there's broken pieces in there. So I'm going to try to flush that out as best I can, and then try to get the rest of that silicone out. what I did was I used just a regular pocket screwdriver. That seems to work best because it's kind of fragile. These things are not extremely good, but you can put a scratch in the surface, so you got to be careful. So I'm going to keep doing this and just get this all done. And like I said, I'm going to top off the power steering. All right, so what I'm doing here is on the bracket itself, I've got Scotch-Brite pad, and basically I got it wrapped up around this scraper that I have, and it's just in a hole. It's just nice and tight, and I'm just twisting it around just to clean out the hole itself. So there, that's pretty darn good. I'm happy with that. Like I said, all it is just Scotch-Brite pad that I folded over the scraper and folded it over again. Oops. Hold on a second. I folded it in half over the scraper, and then once it was in that position, then I folded it over on itself like this to stick it inside the hole and twist it around a few times. I got it that clean, so I'm happy with that. And what I'm thinking happened here is somebody replaced this tensioner at some point in time, and for some reason they didn't change those elbows. They used the old elbows. Not for nothing, Dorman or whoever you are that makes these brackets, why not supply 2 new elbows? Obviously raise the price to cover the price of the elbows, but why not just include them? I bet you it doesn't come with them. I don't recall the last time I've actually had to change one, but judging by the condition of the material, I think that this has been replaced. So that's what I think happened. Somebody replaced it and they just never bothered changing those elbows. They just siliconed them and stuck them back in place. So now I just have to clean out the other one, which is right there. So let me get that done, and then I'll get the elbows in place. I'm ready to go together with it. Now I've lubed up the holes and the elbows with transmission assembly lube. I've already spoken to you about this on several occasions. This stuff is absolutely flawless. I highly recommend having this. It's not expensive. Anyway, there you go. You see it just inserts nicely. You can feel the O-ring slip past nicely. So now this has to go into place. As you see, the bottom one, that has the larger end that goes into the water pump housing there, or front timing cover housing. And you know what I didn't do? I didn't put power steering fluid in it. So actually, let me do that while I'm thinking about it. Because obviously, this is not fun to get to when everything's together. So there you can see I actually have the level a little bit on the high side. What I did was I cut the wheels back and forth several times with the wheels off the ground, because the rack itself will act like almost like a pump to pump any air out of the system. It's still going to have air in there. So the reason I did overfill it slightly too is because I want to be able to, hopefully, you can get to this to check the fluid. It's just a real pain, especially for somebody like me, because I'm a big guy. I mean, 6'2", 300 pounds. So it's a little bit difficult sometimes to get to certain things. But anyway, I'm hoping that I have it overfilled enough at the moment so when I start it and it purges out the air, that the level should be fine. We're pretty darn close to it. So let me put the cap on it, because I don't want to get dirt and debris inside there. And then now, let's take this. I'm going to get this down in place, and we're going to slip everything into where it needs to go. Now I'm going to have to do this two-handed, and because of my situation here, how I have everything, I'm not going to be able to film this. I can't have the camera going even on my tripod, because I just cannot get in here and do what I need to do. So let me get this lined up, and it should just push right in, and then I can line the bolts up and catch the bolts. And there you have it, it's in place. Let's see, can you see down inside there? Let me shine this light down here too. Maybe you can see it better. The LEDs might be flashing against each other, but it's actually bottomed out now. That one's bottomed out. You can just see the top of it sticking through like that, but it's bottomed out. So now I can catch the bolts. Make sure anytime you're putting something together, make sure you catch all the bolts before you tighten them down, and then tighten them down in a sequence. If you don't know what the sequence is, just, you know, crisscross it. It's only 3 bolts, for Christ's sake. Just crisscross it and, you know, get everything in. So let me do that. Let me get that all bolted up, and I'm just going to basically reassemble everything else. It's, you know, like I always say, reverse procedure to install. So let me go ahead and do all of that, get that all back together. And also, because I got coolant all over the power steering pulley, what I'm going to do is I'm going to spray everything down with brake clean once I'm done to clean everything off, because otherwise that stuff will saturate into the belt itself, and I don't like that. So let's go ahead and do that. So that's all together. Now I just wanted to show you this. I laid this in place. I snapped some of these back in place. Basically you just take them and you get it set in there centered, and they do lock in place like that. They are free floating, So you just got to be careful when you put the fuse block over top of them, because you want to make sure that you're going in square. The way you do that is you just kind of feel how it's going on, and it probably wouldn't even screw in. I've never had a situation where it did. It'll probably never even screw into the connector. So, but anyway, so let me get the fuse block, lay that in place. Let me show you something real quick with that too. All right, so here we go. I'm just going to take the fuse block and lay it over top like this. And you want to get everything centered, and you can kind of feel it as you're going together. Now this may be a little difficult doing it one-handed. Let me just see. But it is going together the way it should. Now, let me just pause this for a second because I want to just double check it. Because as you can see, it's actually at a slight angle. It's bigger here than it is over here. So let me just double check just to see what I got going on. So the one issue I was actually having was that top post that somebody had put in here that doesn't even belong on here. At least I don't think it does. Actually, it might. It may actually belong on this vehicle. But anyway, the what was happening was the outer part of the box was hitting there, so I couldn't get it to line up and center. But now it's centered, and there, it clicks in place. So now, what you want to do is take your little trusty gun. Now, I don't have it set on drill. I have it set on one of the higher settings for the to ratchet. So this way it tightens it down. And go slowly, and you can feel it drawing in. And I like to do all of them, get them started. And like I said, I could feel it drawing in. So now, oh, actually my gun's going dead. And one thing I like about this gun is once it shuts off, it actually locks. So I can actually tighten it using the gun itself. So I already did those, so now they're fine. So now, yeah, so I still got to put a battery charger on this thing. I forgot that the battery was dead on this thing. I had to jump start it. I wanted to put a battery charger on it. I never did. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hook everything up and get a battery charger on it and go from there. I may let it actually sit with a battery charger on it. Now, filling the cooling system, I got this funnel going here. Luckily on here, they actually have a little bleeder. So you crack the bleeder open. Now, it's only a 7mm head. Watch, as soon as you crack it open, the bubbling stops and it goes down. Now, it's a little brass fitting. It's not much to it at all. It doesn't take much to tighten it. It seriously doesn't. You can break them very easy. I can't tell you how many times I've seen them where they're snapped off because somebody goes to tighten it and they think they need to be tight, and it's like they just wrench down on it and snap, just breaks right off. I mean, it's a little teeny tiny pin is all it is, and it's made out of brass, brass, and it just snaps right off. It does not take much. Pay attention when you're backing off on it. What did it take you to back off on it? Tighten it up the same way. If it only took you a little bit of effort to break, back it off, break it free, then you don't have to go 365 gorilla foot-pounds on it because it's going to break. Let me get this topped off, and we're going to go from there. So that's all bled out. I've got coolant coming out of there. Basically, I just washed it down with a little bit of water. Everything's topped off with water. I overfilled this because I'm going to start it, have it running for a little bit, burp it out even further. I've had my charger on it, so everything should be good there. Let me actually disconnect the charger. I love this charger, actually. This is pretty good, this thing. It shuts off on its own and everything else. It works really good. We got 2 amp, 10 amp, and 20 amp, I believe. Yeah, and it works really good, especially for maintaining a battery. Like if you're doing work where you have to have battery power constant all the time, like reprogramming, that's an excellent charger for that. So, all right, now back onto this. Let me start it up. Actually, let's connect the battery first. That would help, right? Let's do that. Let's see. Did I route this wrong? No, it just has to come through like this. I forgot they had this just kind of in a weird way. I don't like how they have that. I would prefer that this goes in a different direction, in all honesty. So let me get this in place and tight. So let's try that again. Battery's connected. Let's come over here and start this thing. Okay, I'm going to shut it down. So I don't want it to build up too much air in the system. I just want to purge out the air that's in the system. So now I left the overflow tank out, so this way I can actually get my hand down here, because this is just not a fun way of doing things. This is such a dumb idea. I can never figure this out. So now I can look down inside there, and you can see it's all foam. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to let it sit, and I'm going to let the foam burp out. I'm going to start it, and I'm going to keep doing this several times until I get all the air out of the system, and then I'll verify the fluid level. There we go, all back together. Coolant's topped off, power steering is topped off, everything's right where it's supposed to be. I'm just going to put it up in the air and double check, make sure there's no power steering leaks or coolant leaks or anything. I know there isn't, I just always double check. But that's it. Hopefully you got something out of that video. And if you did, hit that like button. If you could, please subscribe. Alright guys, have a great day. Keep wrenching.